Hey, good morning, sports fans. How you doing today? It is Hangover 123, and after that game yesterday, I do have a bit of a hangover. But before we get into all that falderall, they say to have a winning team, you got to go out and you got to recruit some 5 stars, and to that end, we got K Blair 1701, aka Boganora,
Good
and
morning.
his magic soundboard sitting over there in the corner. Say good
Boom
morning,
goes
Bo. And of course, give him hell. Jess is here to break down the X's and O's for us. And after yesterday's game, I think breakdown is probably the most appropriate term I could pick.
Yeah,
So, big unofficial RBR Livecast welcome to those two august folks. And with all that falderall out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, normally, this is the point at which, during the live cast, I would say, "Okay, guys, what's your highlights and lowlights from yesterday's game?" But given how the first quarter at least went, and other random spots scattered throughout the game, instead, I'm going to mix things up just a little bit. I would like my panel here to answer me a question after we go over the numbers. Just think about this while we're doing the numbers breakdown, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this. So the question is, have we become so jaded as Alabama fans, so expectant of an absolute trouncing of out of conference, non-conference, non-rated, non-P5 teams, that was what was just really, quite frankly, par for the last century, and I mean that literally, I'm not overstating, par for the last century quality Alabama football yesterday, as opposed to a demonstration of the Nick Saban Killbot squad? Or are there actual specific real dangers that were pointed up yesterday in the in the first half of the first quarter, and again, lowlights and so on scattered here and around through the game? So just think about that. Just think about that, and we're gonna kind of go over the numbers here. I'm gonna run down through these, and as I stumble over them in my sleep-deprived haze, I'm sure my fellow streamers here will be more than happy to jump in and pick up my bobble, so I don't lose us the game. All right, so let's get right to it. Passing yesterday was better on paper than it looked on the field, in my opinion. Bryce was 19 of 27 for 227 with an average of 8.4 for 3 touchdowns. Paul Tyson was 1 of 3 for 39. Obviously, that's an average of 13 for those math geniuses who aren't quite awake yet. Jalen Milroe was nothing but 0 for 1 attempt. He looked pretty decent on the ground. So overall, 266 passing yards, average of 8.6, 3 TDs in the air yesterday. Rushing was a mixed bag. B-Rob, Brian Robinson Jr., 10 carries for 70 yards, obviously averages 7, picked up 1 TD. Jace McClellan had the other TD, 4 carries for 13. Jalen Milroe, 7 carries for 33. He's a running quarterback. Trey Sanders, 7 for 30 yards, an average of 4.3. Roy Dell Williams, 4 for 11 at 2.8. And Bryce had 1 scramble. I'm sorry, he had 2 scrambles for a total of 1 yard, with his longest being 8. Receiving, JoJo Earl, was at the top of the heap. He had 7 catches for 85 yards. Mechie, 5 for 70. Jamison Williams, 3 for 31. And of course I'm skipping the longest of the day was Mechie, 41-yard reception. JoJo Earl, 39. Williams, 18. Trayshawn Holden, 2 catches for 31. 17 was his longest. Jace McClellan, single for 21 yards. Bolden, 1 catch for 18. And B-Rob had 1 catch for 10. We did have 1 fumble, Trey Sanders, but he got it back. Defense looked pretty good. I could be here all morning just going through defense. I think they were my highlight yesterday was how the defense firmed up with a couple of noted exceptions, which we'll get to later. 2 interceptions. Kool-Aid. Oh, yeah. Kool-Aid had a pick. Marcus Banks had a pick. Slade looked good on kick returns, I thought. Even though Latu had more, Slade had 1 for 24. That was quite nice. Latu had 2 for a total of 7. Punt returns. JoJo Earl, better there. 2 for 45. Long of 29. Jace McClellan, I think...
that's the blocked punt.
That's the blocked punt. Thank you. Jace McClellan there. Slade, 3 for 29, average of 9.7 each. Looking good, Slade. Chris Braswell, 1 for 11. And the heartbreaking news from yesterday, Will Reichard, his streak was broken. 2 field goals, 3 attempts. But he was perfect on extra points, which, let's face it, prior to 2020 was not a fait accompli for our kicking game.
True. Well,
And
I think it's probably not a bad thing that streak got broken against Mercer. So he's not carrying that pressure into when we need to make one.
yeah, better now than say in overtime number 2 of the Natty. And finally, James Burnip looked absolutely competent on punting. I thought 3 for 130 with a long one of 44. But, I mean, he doesn't get a lot of reps, and that's kind of the way we like it. So, class, pencils down. What did you think? What's going on? Are we soul sick, or are we as fans just too jaded? What do you think, Gurley?
Why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos?
I'm sticking with my native tongue. Well, Southern is my native tongue, but okay. Yeah, you know what? We are definitely jaded, and every time we don't shut somebody out that's not a Power 5, we kind of melt down a little bit. But we had some problems yesterday. Some problems that we sort of showed their face against Miami. They were highlighted yesterday. The offensive line has a lot of work to do before they're a top-notch unit. I saw a lot of inexperience in the secondary, not the secondary, in the wide receiver unit. And running back, I can't tell yet. The line was so bad. I didn't see a lot of good out of the running backs yesterday. But honestly, I think that had a lot to do with the offensive line, and that comes from an old offensive lineman. I'm hard on those guys. But I will say that I see now why Jamison Williams got lost on the depth chart at Ohio State. He had a really dumb penalty, and he's not running. He's not adjusting his routes like I would expect him to, which is causing some incompletions. And the rest of the receiving core, I'm seeing a lot of inexperience. I like JoJo Earl. I like the way he looks. And the big man, Mechie, he looks good, but I'm and Slade. When you're going into the end zone, don't run over the fool. You're a big fella. Don't try to jump over him. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm ranting now.
No, it's quite all right. The words that I blurted out when I saw that was, "You are not Najee Harris, young man. Lower your shoulder and kill a fool." Okay.
There were some Najee wannabes on the field yesterday. One of the running backs tried to jump over a guy, and there were two defenders right on the other side of that guy. That is never a good time to try to run the hurdles because you're going to get wasted.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
and I think deep down in Nick Saban's heart of hearts, he's secretly glad this game happened because he's hoping the team's going to wake up a little bit and get back to working hard during the week and preparing the way they're supposed to prepare and not be lazy and think they're already there.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I sincerely, honestly hope you're right.
Defense
KB,
looked good. I have to say that. Defense looked very good except for about 3 plays in the second half.
yeah, defense was very firm, and that was a saving grace yesterday.
Absolutely.
What do you got, Bo?
I have to agree with Gurley there. I don't know that he's secretly happy. I'm pretty sure he's happy. There's it's, are we jaded as a fan base? Yes, but you gotta think of it from the player's perspective. It's hard to get for Mercer, right? I think it was easier for them to get up last year because every game was an SEC game. I almost feel like the first were what we expected to see against Miami, and when they came out just firing on all cylinders, it's like, at some point they're going to regress, and better to do that against Mercer than Florida next week, right?
Ooh, yeah.
But overall, it's a solid 8 or Wheaties. Their special teams look good, I thought. Punting is, it's serviceable, but definitely. He needs more reps, but he's going to get those in practice, I hope.
I agree with you.
Yeah, looks like JoJo Earl's coming along. I like him at punt return. That's nice. Williams had 2 drops that they hit him right in the hands. He should have
that pissed me off. So
and I'm just screaming at the TV, and the dog's looking at me like, "What's wrong with you?" So,
and one of them had 6 written on it.
Exactly.
I just clear lane up the middle. I'm sorry, I'm stepping on you. Please go.
You're fine, no problem. So, but yeah, I came away from that. Once they settled down, and once the line kind of got used to, it's a small defensive front that Mercer has, right? And they play differently. They don't see this. They didn't see it all last year, and they're not going to see it again this year. So it's a different style of play. And but our run defense is sound. I hate the cut blocks, especially with what happened to Will Anderson. So hopefully we're through with that and no serious injuries. That's about all I got.
All right. Jess, go.
Okay, so where do we start with this? There was a lot of good things. I thought McClellan was there. I thought Evan Neal really didn't get talked about a whole lot because the strong side of the line, the far side of the line, wasn't that great. So Damian George, when he got brought in, I noticed there was a big difference on the strong side line. I was fine with punting game. Burnup is more a directional guy, which means you try to get him more in terms of where you want the ball to go rather than the distance of it. And him coming up short is by design because you think Alabama's going to move the ball, right? So again, they don't want to get touchback. So that's partly why I designed why he doesn't have a big leg, or at least why they don't encourage him to use it. I was concerned a little bit with kickoffs. That is a part of Reichardt's game. Even throughout last year, I didn't think was all that great. He did have a kickoff out of bounds. Play that sticks out to me, I would say, I'm all over the place because there's so much going on with it. So I mentioned about George Sherman. So on the sack on the first drive that Solomon Zubaru had, that was entirely on Chris Owens. So Chris Owens needs to move back inside. That's the big thing I take away from this going forward. He had decent squareness of his body. He got out of his stance quickly, but he didn't adjust. Because what happened on that play is Zubaru was coming around the edge, and Owens gets stopped because he is an interior lineman by design and what he's historically played, that he could just stand his ground and that he would come right at him. Well, no, when you're on the ends of an offensive line, you're going to have guys coming around you. And if you're not going to adjust to that, your quarterback is going to suffer. Like, he's just lucky he wasn't playing weak side tackle because Bryce could have seriously gotten hurt on that. Thankfully, Bryce isn't a lefty either. That just really sticks out to me as just an ignorant play on offense. There's one on defense that I really want to talk about eventually that involves Daniel Wright because I know we got asked about him. But, oh, boy, Daniel Wright today was Daniel Wright, really. I mean, the linebackers look good. I felt like the front seven really got an underrated job done today. Yeah, exactly. We're going to ask about that. So, Daniel Wright. So I'll talk about that now, actually. So on the second touchdown that Mercer had, it was a nice little pass, admittedly, right? Because I mean, it was a nice pass and taking advantage of what was given to you. They Fred Payton to tie games 22 yards. Now they said on the color commentary that it was a man assignment with help over the top for cover two. Well, cover two is a man, so you're really not going to have a help safety a whole lot of the time. You can, it's just not cover two. At that point, it's a mod base, which means it's not the standard two defensive back seat. And so Daniel Wright, once the ball was thrown in the air, he's spying downfield. He's looking, I believe, the tight end. He's in a two-eye. I mean, granted, he's not a lineman, but if he was a lineman, he'd be in a two-eye stance, which refers to where his eyes are looking at the point of the ball when pre-snap. So when he realizes the ball is thrown, he looks over and he just gives the biggest glance over, like, "Oh my God, I forgot what I was supposed to do." And it looks like Kool-Aid got burned. And Saban indirectly noted this. Saban said that Kool-Aid looked very good. I love Kool-Aid's pick, by the way. If he didn't get that ball, he was just going to knock it loose because he was trailing behind the defender in a weak side, which is the left side of the defender's body. But he knocked it out that way. So Wright got exposed that way. Daniel Wright has no place on this team except for special teams. He is tremendously fast. He hits hard. That's a special teamer. He doesn't belong in the secondary. He's maybe a dime safety at most. It's just frustrating to see that. I think the offense did get it together. I think Holden had an underrated game because remember there was that false start. Like I think it was somewhere in the third. It was a no call, but they had Bryce Young threw it on an absolute frozen rope with arm strength that was like just a foot out of bounds. And if that had stood, then we might have been talking a very different story at large, not necessarily here, but everywhere about the type of day that Bryce and the offense had with encouraging things. But in terms of not encouraging things, I also noticed Mechie's. Like, if you talk about Mechie's longest catch of the day, credit to Mercer. They defended him really well. My comparison was like a rival bee stealing the honey from the hive, because it really felt that way. But so they had him. So Mechie got the ball, I believe, around the 30, 40-yard line of Mercer. We're at the depth of the target. And at that point, he kept running, and the announcer at that point called it a foot race, which I thought it was because, you can't really see it always all the way up the field. And so he let up a little bit at that point, and he was brought down by 2-3 defenders when he really could. If he had put on his jets the entire way, I think he could have scored on that play. There was no reason for it not to be the case. He kind of ran in a straight line. Granted, I realized it was pretty – he wanted to have it be a go, a smoke, or at that point what we could call a vertical route. But, he didn't adjust. I don't know how much his heart was in it either. Ryan Robinson was consistently good. When I noted the line stuff, I noted that really when he was running to the left side, they ran a lot of outside zone that way. It wound up working really well. They went to the strong side. Well, it wasn't exactly strong except in football name and terminology only. It was just frustrating to watch. There were some good parts, certainly. but there were a lot of really sloppy, sluggish moments. It felt like I was walking through a Mississippi mud pie pile, honestly. The
Yeah.
only part that really concerns me, that's the right tackle thing going forward, and I think they're going to give George more snaps in Gainesville next week because that is a concern. If you're doing that against a team like Mercer, you can't do it on the road against another SEC team. Everything else seems like it cleaned itself up eventually, except Daniel Wright. But he knows he's my whipping boy. He's not going to get those accolades that fast.
So is offensive line our biggest concern going forward?
I think so. At least
Yeah.
on the strong side, because again, our weak side is really good, right? So Dalcourt has been an underrated center. He's not been amazing, but I didn't think he was going to be this good. Cohen has been. I really can't judge Cohen because Neil has done the vast majority of the work for him. So Ekir has been okay. Owens is just. I can't believe this guy's a fifth-year senior. Like, what's he doing? Like he acted like he didn't know he had switched positions. You just can't have that. And I would say definitely offensive line. But I do think, full disclosure, lines take at least a month to gel. And that's what really this time of Saban would never say it, but he knows these units take a while to gel, right? Because there are so many different pieces on this line from last year. And you have to know your chemistry. You have to know your guys' tendencies. You have to know if you can run an ace block, a deuce block. Those are a tackle and guard set positions that you use to run, essentially. They're kind of fancy combos like that on the line. And that'll come with time, but right now it is a concern, especially when you consider it's not a cupcake next week at all.
Yeah, I mean, I you really hit on the key part, and to dive in a little bit more, to think about highlights and lowlights. I want to try to be positive, and I don't want to be jaded about it. I don't want to be the guy who's sitting here going, oh, we should be blasé about beating the pants off of these guys. Because I'll tell you, me even of a few years ago, not me as a younger man than I already am. I am a young man. But me of as recently as a few years ago would look at this game and go, what? They only got 2 touchdowns and it was garbage time. We did fine. Everything's cool. Everything's wonderful. That peeling back the layers a little bit, seeing it from inside as a fan, capital F fan. That's not the case. So my low tide moment had to be the opening 7 minutes. Yeah, there were some oh dang it moments later on, 2 bobbled passes. But no, that's my low tide moment, when it was clear that the offensive line and the offense in general was not firing on all cylinders, because that kind of offensive line weakness last week, because last week they weren't perfect either. Pressure was getting to Bryce, but Bryce was reacting better. I'm sorry?
So last week they were playing Miami.
Yeah, last week they were playing Miami. But
So,
Bryce was reacting better to
Mercer.
the pressure. Yeah, Bryce was reacting better to the pressure last week. So that right there, that was a low tide moment for me. But just so I don't sound like a completely negative Nancy. High tide, it's not. I can't really pick a moment. I would just say the progression and acuity of the defense in the overall. I thought that the defense was just chef's kiss. So yeah, I have no problems with the defense in the overall. And then I would say probably, and we have Jess to thank for this. So the elephant stomp moment for me yesterday, hands down, had to have been the blocked punt. I love blocked punts that lead to non-offensive touchdowns. I loved that. That made me happy. That made me put the big bottle down. and go back to sipping my my Guinness was the blocked punt. So yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed the blocked punt moment. Digging in a little bit deeper to the numbers, and with a defensive stats list that's as long as my arm. Again, I would still be reading it now if I'd started it at the beginning of the show. But I don't want to overlook. We had 3 sacks yesterday. That ain't chicken feed. I mean, Toto looked good. Is that how you say? Quick poll of the audience and the panel. How do you say? Is it Tua Toa? I don't know.
To'o. I looked at the pronunciation guide yesterday.
To'o. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kool-Aid Man looked fantastic. Loved that. Byron Young was in there on a sack. DJ Dale picked one up. And let's see. Byron Young and Fidarian Mathis, which I think, wasn't that a television and stereo store back in the 70s and 80s? No, that was Curtis Mathis, sorry. Fidarian Mathis picked up a sack yesterday. So that was quite nice to see. And in the overall, defense had 8 tackles for a loss. And I can't be unhappy about that.
Yeah, run defense was definitely my high tide moment. This is a run-heavy team. We held them to 48 yards running, so no complaints there. Their longest run was 9 yards, which is outstanding.
Yes. I mean, they had, a whopping Carter Peavy and Brandon Marshall over on Mercer had a combined negative 16 yards rushing. So it's nice to see numbers like that. We put up okay, I think, in total yards overall. It wasn't the steamrolling that Miami got, but as we've said, this is Mercer. And guys were not showing out for Mercer. But yeah, I thought defense did okay. I'm gonna. Sorry there. I had someone stick their head in the room for a moment. So what do you think we need to work on? Or Gurley, did you have any moments? I know you had a lot of irons in the fire yesterday, Gurley. So I'm if you don't have any particular highlights or lowlights, if you got to go back and catch this on a replay, I completely understand. But was there something you saw yesterday? Your elephant stomp moment for what you did get to see, anything like that?
My problem is this: in a game against an FCS school, I see the screw ups far more than I see the big plays, and that's just me being a worrywart. But I will say that block punt, my initial thought on that was, okay, that'll get them started. That's good. But we always seem to have a big special teams play against an FCS school, and sometimes it will be the peak and tell us, okay, let's bring in the twos now, and sometimes it'll be a game where we're starting slow, and it'll be a situation where, okay, that's going to have to kick us off. And yesterday we needed that to get everybody going. Low lights, watching that offensive line. I'm sorry, guys, and I agree. Chris Owens should not be outside. He's in the middle. He's used to playing in a phone booth, and I think that's what he's built to play. So we need to find an answer at right tackle so he can move back inside. The secondary, for the most part, they played well. They had some mental breakdowns on about 3 plays, uh, and they were all garbage time. So I think it was just a matter of them taking a deep breath and relaxing a little bit and forgetting, oh, this is still a competitive game and they haven't given up yet. Okay, we've got to get back into this. Um, Daniel Wright, he's just got to mentally stay focused. I think he lost focus and kind of blanked out on a little bit. Uh, I would just like to see a little more consistency out of that guy. Uh, hi, Another highlight. I'd like to see Slade Bolden scoring touchdowns. He's quicker than you think. I keep thinking of him as a little bit slow-footed, but he's a quick guy, and I like to see him get. I like to see what he does with the ball. He's fun to watch. Quarterback play. That was neither Elephant Stomp and that or Low Tide. He played an okay game. He didn't play a great game, but he didn't really play a bad game either. I want to see a little bit more work on them between the quarterbacks and the receivers. I want to see them improve playing against zone coverage. I think they struggled just a little bit yesterday against zone coverage. The receivers were not in the windows where he thought he was throwing or he thought they were going to be, and they weren't there. So they're going to have to get better there. Other than that, games like this are usually kind of fun to watch for about a quarter, and then you go take a nap. Did get to take a nap yesterday, but dang it, guys, I need my nap.
Oh.
Work harder in the first quarter.
No,
But
I
mean, it's hard to. These games, I think I said it last week, is Alabama the best team in the country? Was the question to me last week. And I said, we have one data point. Now we have two. And it was against an overmatched opponent that we didn't prepare well for. So we still don't know what this team is. I don't think they know what they are yet. They're still pretty young. We shall see. We'll find out a lot more next week.
All right. Jess, over to you.
Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed the block punt. That was just a gorgeous thing to see from McClellan. The only thing I didn't like about it, and admittedly it wasn't necessarily related to the play, was that I wanted to see the offense get more red area opportunities because the nice thing about when you're in the red area, you get the offensive line really tight quarters and it forces them to make quicker blocks and come out of their stance that much faster. And for a unit that was really struggling with it at that point and really throughout most of the day, getting those reps really would have been nice. And what really is a game that is essentially health, and getting young guys reps more than anything else. Low point has to be, as mentioned, Daniel Wright not paying attention. I don't know what happened with Jordan Battle on the first play. It's like he lost the ball in the sun. He was not going to have help over the top. That was weird too. Like the 2 touchdowns they scored, I don't think would happen again. And again, let's not forget, Galen Davis and Josh Jobe were out of this game because they missed practice. That's not going to be an issue going forward. And I think that really does impact what your defense can do in terms of really pass defense for obvious reasons. Right? Because if you're starting your dime back, then that says a lot. And it makes it that much harder to really defend properly. Especially when you talk about how Josh Jobe is physical. Talk about how Armour Davis has really been, granted it was only one game, it was Miami, but he was very foundationally sound. But high point, because Elephant Stomp for sure is the block punt. That was just that's just a fun play. I live for those type of moments because it is pure domination. We are ripping your soul from your body, putting it back in, and then ripping it back out a second time when we score. It's a beautiful thing. But high point, is tough. Because not a lot stands out to me that was especially positive in that regard. I would say really that Byron Young had a lot of pressures. He won a lot of battles, as well he should, but he stuck out for really how much he came over the middle, came a lot over the 1 and the 0 tech alignment that he was in a lot of the time. It was, and by the way, 1 and 0 refer to really more the middle, so he was coming over the middle, lined up against the opposing center, and he was able to win those battles one-on-one a lot of the times. Again, granted, he should do that, but when you do it repeatedly, hey, you can only play who's in front of you. So that was very encouraging in that respect, especially because if he comes through, that opens up a lot in terms of what the linebackers can do. And because we see that a lot with Will Anderson, right? So Will Anderson obviously opens up so much for so many other people in terms of allowing free rushing lanes and allowing good penetration. With last week, this week, depending on how you view it, the penetration was absolutely outstanding. The 9-yard rush was when we were in prevent. It was on the first play of their last drive. That's absolutely encouraging. They had some great stuffs, a lot of tackles for loss, like Hangover said, and that's just the way it should be in that respect. The front seven is an under-heralded unit right now, and let it be that way, because I think that's where this team's strength really is. Even if this team is firing on all cylinders, that's what they'll do best. Assuming Will Anderson is healthy, and it sounds like, God willing, that he'll be okay, and we'll see him really for the majority of the conference schedule at the absolute worst case. I know we're going to need him against the Wolves, for sure. So,
yeah, I agree. I said yesterday, and I may draw some flack for this, guys, but I sometimes you got to be a little contrarian. Sometimes you got to be the dark cloud inside the silver lining. If we are going to drop Florida, as in lose the game, not drop them as in drop them dead, I would rather Will Anderson sit out and not get hurt in a losing game to just make it even more bitter. So, yeah, I want a Will Anderson that's functioning at 100%, can do jumping jacks on that one leg kind of level. If I'm not saying we're going to. I'm not one of these doom and gloom people that's like, yeah, we're effed. Forget about it. Don't even go to Florida. Just give them the W, forfeit. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if it's going to come to it, better to let Will Anderson rest for a week than stick him out there on what may not be a great day for Alabama football. So,
do we have prognosis on Will? Last I heard, it looked like everything was going to be fine, but is there any concern that he's not going to be 100% next week?
I actually have, this is from the best source I was able to find, and this is essentially everybody else. I should be clear on that. This is from 247 Sports. They're just saying lower leg, we're checking out his knee. He's questionable as to what his circumstance will be here for the upcoming week. And unfortunately, I don't think that's Nick being coy. I think the frustration, the level of frustration in the after presser just denied him the chance to, kind of a wink and a nod, like, oh no, he won't be back, guys. Ha, there he is. Which is weird because his on-field presser, he was practically smiling, which I never see Nick do in on-field pressers. Even after wins, he seems exasperated.
Those coaching moments he had.
Yeah, I was thinking about the bag of marbles he had to throw at everybody come, hopefully, this morning. But thinking about all those stadium steps he's going to watch players running up and down.
So that's an interesting question. Do they still get the 24 hours to celebrate this win, or do they just skip that?
I would say even if it's on the table, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I think they'll get it so that way they can get it out of their system. And that's kind of why I think Saban was smiling, because he was able to convey his points that he conveyed to the media, probably similar throughout the team, came to fruition that you can't just rest on your laurels and you will play a sloppy game. Well, they played a sloppy game. So I think that indicates to me Saban thinks he can get through to these players because of what happened this week compared to what he was saying, because it was very much the same, even if they necessarily weren't all bought into that yet. So that I think that's what it is. And I think you're going to see a hair on fire Alabama team in Gainesville next week. It kind of reminds me of what I think, and I didn't expect at the time, but in retrospect, what they were in Athens in 2015. That's what I expect.
Yeah. He all but said, "I told you so," in his press
conference. That's just it, right? Exactly.
I tell you what, the process, the multiple national championships, the pipeline directly to the NFL. All of those are part of Nick Awesome. But let's face it, the guy's ultimate superpower is his ability to say, I told you so. He's been saying, I told you so since 2011 when he asked that fateful question, is this what we want college football to be? You know, I told you so. I warned you. I stood right there and I warned you guys. And you didn't listen. And look at where we're at now. And I'm beating you to death with your own greed. So, yeah, Nick's going to have a lot of I told you so's in the future, but being able to I told you so the entire team and hopefully wring better performance out of them come next Saturday is absolutely delicious to watch as a fan, even though getting there was a little bit painful. But speaking of Florida and other things that happen with other teams in the SEC, I'm gonna go ahead and put the ticker up, not like an actual ticker, not one that's let's see. We'll go ahead and put the top 25 ticker up now because there's a lot of SEC in the top 25, a ridiculous amount of SEC in the top 25, and some wannabe SEC in the top 25.
For now.
For now.
Like Jess said this morning, Texas is back to the Big 12. But we had Auburn, who's sitting in the uttermost basement of the top 25, although that will probably change because, you know, they beat Alabama State 62-0. Tennessee lost to Pittsburgh. I'm probably going to be eating mush in the old folks home before Tennessee gets out of their own road. South Carolina versus East Carolina, 20-17, in a game that sounded like it was being broadcast right out of 1978, just based on the score there. I did not catch that game. Let's see. We had.
They were down 14-0 in that was the very definition of a struggle win. There was no reason
yeah.
could have won this at all. Last second field goal. I don't know what Beamer's doing down there. I know it's early, but like that can't be encouraging.
Yeah. Well, he was near tears, happy over the win. So, okay, Coach Beamer, whatever. Now, here's one I want to pause on because these guys are our opponents next week. Florida versus South Florida, 42-20. Sounds like a demolition because Florida put up 36 of those points. Am I mathing properly? 35 of those points in the first and second half. Is this a case of sloppy play leading to garbage time numbers better than what they actually are, better looking than what they actually are? Or was South Florida actually able to put something together? Because a 22-point victory margin over a then 0-1 team is not, you know, it's not like they went in and beat Mercer. I mean, come on, guys. Personally, I just think it's garbage time sloppiness on the Gators' problem, and 42-20 is not telling the whole story there. That you know, Florida handled South Florida quite ably. A&M and Colorado in a game that was being broadcast from about 1926 in terms of score, 10-7.
And that was barely. They were amazed. I was amazed it even got that high. Honestly, the fact that King was in crutches, I think he was in like a walking boot. That's really notable for at least Alabama's future because I don't think they'll face him when they go to College Station. And Zagara, I believe their backup is, or well, he's going to be their starter now, but he didn't look at all confident in that game. And this is in Colorado. I mean, I realize it's on the road and you get a little bit tired because it's the elevation error, but really, Calzada, excuse me, I reversed the letters. But Zach Calzada didn't look all that great in that. He didn't look confident. He didn't look like he knew the offense all that well. Granted, he really hasn't played that much because of Mond and everything, and King was really King passed him last year on the depth chart. But man, that offense outside of Weidermeyer, I don't know. I have a lot of questions. Like Aina Smith is always nice as a really good slot guy, and you always see the number 00 is 19 for special teams. That's him. But I don't think they have much of a direction, and this is the real risk that Jimbo Fisher took coming into the year. And now it's really rearing its ugly head. Oh, we're going to build everything but the quarterback. Well, now you're down your quarterback, and admittedly, I liked Haynes King coming into the year. I thought he had a very good high school tape. But now you're deeper into your reserves of not even having a quarterback in this day and age, which is confounding to me. Like, the only time Jimbo's found success was with Winston at FSU, right? And now, I mean, you're not always going to have the first pick overall, for sure. But you got to have some semblance, especially in today's game, of a downfield passing threat. They didn't have much of that to begin with because King wasn't real. I was one of the higher people on him, and I wasn't that high. But now you're down to Calzada, and I'm not sure who's behind him. That is how low your depth is right now, and how you're going to be expected to consistently put points up in the SEC. You're just not. That was a win, but at what cost? It's a Pirate victory, honestly.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement with you, and I think ATM is hitting Fisher fatigue. What do you think, Bo?
ATM's going to have to print out some cash, I tell you what.
I got to watch a little bit of that game yesterday on Calzada. For large stretches of that game, didn't look like he was aware he could throw the ball to another player. Oof. I mean, that ball was it kissed the turf a lot, and that he was bad. 18 for 38.
Oh my God, I could probably get out there and sling the rock around at least that bad.
And you have more eligibility left.
All right, so let's see. Georgia beat UAB. Big deal. 56-7. I mean, it's.
I wonder if they're going to move up to number one this week. I'm irrationally worrying about that because I want to see Saban go one to one, wire to wire. Admittedly, that is a very personal and selfish goal I want, but I hope they don't.
Same, but Nick Saban has this lovely trick that he does, and I think you'll all agree with me, where when Alabama, even sometimes when they're sitting in number one, sitting just in the catbird seat, convinces both the team, the fans, the press, and the nation at large that they're scrappy underdogs who are barely hanging on and are only just getting in by the sheerest amount of pluck, and it makes for some great football drama. So if that happens, good.
Yeah. The wire to wire number one is a cool thing, but honestly, I mean, it would not bother me in the least if they dropped to 2 and give them a little bit more motivation for next week.
Yeah, it would be a good talking point. It certainly, in terms of, I think, team development, team morale, team humbling, I think it would do a better job for them. But you'd have a direct talking point. See what happens. The other coaches don't even trust you now because of what you did out there. You understand? Like it's really simple. That's why it's great to have that motivation. And if you have the world against you, even if you have all the skill in the world, if you have things going against you, it gives you a motivation and a reason to go. And that's why, and it doesn't excuse it, but I think that is partly why psychologically, if not, I think grounded well in reality, why some of these guys don't get up for the Mercer games. Because, it's not a good way to think, especially as a football player. You have to respect your opponent a lot more than that, I think. But at the end of the day, you really do think you're going to win that game going in. Like, even if you don't give 100%. Not that you should display that, but deep down, I think you understand that.
Yeah. Of course, Mercer, Alabama. We know how that went. Mississippi State, NC State, 24-10. Mississippi State looked pretty consistent in that ball game, I thought. And I'll tell you something, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but Mississippi State can be one of those tricky games for Bama, regardless of how the season is going. Sometimes we go in and we clean their clocks. Sometimes we go in and we have, like, barely escaped with our lives games against Mississippi State. And it seems to literally just depend on, I don't know, the phase of the moon or, just the mindset of the players. So,
Yeah, what was the line on that game? On the Mississippi State NC State game?
I remember NC State was the favorite.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just caught pieces of that game. But what I saw of it, I thought Mississippi State looked much better than they did last week.
Suey Pig, Arkansas. Welcome to the SEC, Texas.
Yep.
After that game, they may be trying to go back. They may be trying to join the All-American Conference because they did not want any.
Yeah, you're going to go in the new Big 12 where Cincinnati is the Big Cats. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that they want to go play the Bearcats. I think they would have handled them yesterday.
They got hog-handled, is what happened.
Wow.
They got pushed around both sides of the ball. And second half, they just did not want any of it.
What surprised me most about that game was that Arkansas was able to get pressure with 3 consistently.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so
they won the line of scrimmage, it's safe to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I usually don't try to get defense stuff, but I legitimately let out a whoop because God knows that was fun to see Texas. God bless Sark, but that was fun to see Texas humbled like that after all they've been doing this summer. Seriously.
Yeah. The crying Matthew McConaughey .gif for that one. So
it's not all right. It's not all right at all.
It's not all right. I try to look past the fact that Matthew McConaughey apparently thinks he's part of the goddamn Regents. Pardon my language. And enjoy his movies because I think he's a brilliant actor, but seeing the Longhorns take the L and Matthew McConaughey being distraught about it just fills me with an evil joy. So, let's see. Ole Miss. Okay, I'm going to pause here. Ole Miss beat Austin Peay 54-17.
Let's go P.
Well, I just had a bunch of water before the show, so anyway, guys, and I don't mean my esteemed panel here. I know y'all are fully cogent of this, but if there's anyone out there looking at the FPI for Alabama Ole Miss, and you're like, oh, it's 9.8%, we're gonna steamroll them. 2 words: stop it. Ole Miss is the danger. All right. I personally think Kiff has got something going on down there. If there is a coach, a former assistant that is going to beat Nick Saban, it's going to be that young man in Ole Miss, and he's going to do it with Ole Miss. And he just might earn his invite to sit in the big seat when he does. I'm just putting that out there. Texas A&M is a joke. They're not the threat this season. They're not the threat running through the middle of the season.
Where do you think
Ole Miss
ranked after yesterday?
I'm sorry?
So where do you think they're going to end up ranked after yesterday?
Ole Miss. I'll have to look at what the teens did in terms of who lost what and so on, but I could see Ole Miss jumping up 5. To be brutally honest with you,
what, 15?
Yeah,
that sounds about right. Texas and USC lost. Virginia Tech will probably get a little bit of a bump, not much. Wisconsin played. Well, they played in Eastern Michigan. I think they're going to probably get up to. I could see them at I could see them 17 because UCLA was off this week.
Guys, we're forgetting something. What is it? Oh yes, Ohio State lost.
Oh, this was
Sorry.
oh, I got stories about this one. I did a ton of research on this story.
Oh man, I watched that game. Listened to the first part of it while I was doing yard work, and watched the last of it, and it was just a joy. It was just I was sitting there salivating.
Yes, that was I witnessed the one rare time when I'll ever root for Oregon to do anything, but watching that win probability graph crawl up away from orange all the way into green, and seeing the Buckeyes auger into the ground from 30,000 feet, that was so enjoyable. Y'all ain't it. Y'all ain't it. So yeah, that was delicious. I lost my hey.
I got a few stats about that game if you want to hear them. This is fun.
Yes, I do. Just want to wrap up SEC real quick. Missouri, Kentucky, 35-28.
That was a good game.
Yeah, good showing by Kentucky. I have no complaints about Kentucky. Way to carry the banner for us for the SEC.
In the East, right?
Not Kentucky. Yeah. McNeese State. Did anybody care about McNeese State LSU? No.
No.
That game was 17-0 at the half. They were struggling with that game. So it was kind of funny from that regard, but that's the only thing I got out of it. They were they thought we thought we were on the struggle bus, and we kind of were, admittedly, but they were on the big struggle bus. Like these guys couldn't get out of their parking spot, but get out of the lot.
So, how many McNeese State fans did Coach O challenge to a fight?
I mean, it's another team with Sissy Blue in their logo too, so I'm surprised that went as well as it did.
Yeah.
The problem with that is they could understand him and he could understand them, but no one could understand either of them.
Yes.
Outside of that stadium.
I have made this joke. I will never stop making this joke. If you haven't heard this joke from me in a forum post, something on Reddit, or a comment here on the show, you're going to hear it now. What's your favorite college rivalry, guys? Mine is Ed Orgeron versus the English language. There.
Ed Orgeron versus YouTube sub.
That's Ed Orgeron versus the YouTube subtitles algorithm. That poor computer. There's a liquid helium cooled computer sitting inside Google's YouTube offices, and it's just trying to translate what that man says. And by man, I mean Red Bull slamming, beignet hoovering. Well, I'm just going to stop right there.
Don't be hating on beignets, man. Those are good.
Beignets are good. That the person they go into is not. And finally, way down there at the ass end of the conference, Vandy, Colorado State, 24-21, and what seemed to be a real barn burner of a game. I did not catch that one, but looked like it was fun.
I won.
Former Bama, Joseph Bolivis hit the game-winning kick on that, though, too. I was amazed they even won this, given how they turned up Vanderbilt didn't even turn up last week at all.
All right, so Jess had some comments on Ole Miss, and I want to hear those. I almost walked away from that.
Yeah. Not as much on Ole Miss this week, but Ole Miss in general, I think, is running a lot of really deceptive motion plays that kind of matches with Kiffin's personality. I have a lot of stuff on Ohio State and a lot of stuff across the league. But Ole Miss scares me because of what I think they can run in terms of really fooling our guys. Because I think a lot of times I'm used to our defense being reactionary. So what they see is what they get. And we saw that last year, right? Because we saw Moses being a little bit close and slow really to adjust, not only because of injury, but because that's really what the game he grew up with is, and it's again so different now. But my goodness, I think it'll work. I think it'll be okay. I'm glad it's at Bryant Denny this year because I think Matt Corral is easily, easily a top 3 quarterback in the SEC right now. You have decent options. Snoop Connor is a really underrated piece that they have. Their defense is really where you're always going to have questions. But you look at how they're trying to mitigate that. They have a lot of guys who you call jokers, and that's actually what Mercer plays. So if you look at Mercer's depth chart that they put out yesterday, they have a lot of jokers. So their front seven is not necessarily as obvious and defined by role as it otherwise would be, because you can't necessarily point out, oh, he's the Mike, he's the Sam, he's the Will. But you know the odd thing is too, right? And this just came to me. The fact that Mercer runs that kind of defense and it's closer to what Ole Miss is running. Now you laugh at this, but I believe Ole Miss's defense is a little bit better than what their talent would indicate. They're better than the sum of their parts. But to face a defense like Mercer's, and at least in terms of groupings and in terms of what they run, I think that's really good practice for that game. Sounds weird that you want to practice and get reps for an Ole Miss game, but in this case, it makes sense to understand that not everything is going to be as clear cut and vanilla as it otherwise should be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It'll be interesting to see. So, Jess and I talked a little bit about this offline in a studio warm up earlier this weekend. Great value Lane Kiffin with a bowl cut, aka Kirby Smart, always shoots himself in the foot with silly look at me daddy plays when it comes to playing Alabama. That's why I'm not worried about them. It's there's a factor there that Kirby Smart doesn't have. He doesn't have the complete set of tools that it takes to beat Nick Saban when Nick Saban is coaching a competent Alabama team. He can get close. He got close twice, but he can never quite finish it. And one of the reasons he wasn't able to finish it was, again, because of a stupid look at me daddy trick play.
Yeah, I mean, you knew the guy on the fishing line going to have to be faster than that with the dollar bill on the fishing line.
Yeah, exactly. Lane Kiffin has no such illusions. Yes, he screwed a little bit with Nick by having the team practice in the warehouse instead of out on the field, which I really have to tip my hat to Lane Kiffin because that young man knows how to troll the NCAA better than almost anybody. And they immediately put a rule in effect, like the next weekend. Okay, you've got to have your team warming up on the field. That's just the rules now. You can't do what Ole Miss did.
The thing that worries me about Lane Kiffin is he's the joker. Okay? He is tactically brilliant, and he is sitting there waiting and waiting. And he he's had Alabama marked on his calendar since the day after last year's game.
Yeah.
He's saving some things up, and even if he loses another game because he's not showing something, he's gonna hold some stuff back for Alabama because he just wants the world to burn. And because he knows that if he can beat Alabama, it matters a little bit less that he loses to Mississippi State. Well, maybe not Mississippi State, but say Arkansas. So I mean, this is his red letter game. This is his Super Bowl. He wants to beat Alabama, so he's gonna try to set the world on fire to do it.
I think that is about as apt a description as you could have. I'm sorry, I stepped on somebody.
So the difference to me between Kiffin and Bolcutt is I truly believe Kiffin wants to be the head coach at Alabama. And he knows that the way to do that is to beat Saban.
Oh, undoubtedly. He wants the big chair. And if he can really show out, then, at the appropriate time in 2035 or 2040, then he can have the job. But again, guys, fans, friends, trolls, countrymen, do not sleep on Ole Miss. Ole Miss is the living definition of a trap game. And Big G, you absolutely hit it out of the park. Kiffin is absolutely the Joker, and there's much he will burn down to get that W against Nick Saban. He will do it more competently, tougher, and more frustrating a challenge for Alabama than Georgia could ever dream to. So that's, that's the long and short of it with me and Ole Miss. Guys, again, fellow Alabama fans, don't think that we're just going to push past Ole Miss. This is not 2017 Ole Miss, okay? we're not hanging 63. If we hang 63 or 66 points on Ole Miss, it's because we had to. It's because Ole Miss has 59.
Yeah, that game still scared me. Like, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be by any means anything that you can sleep comfortably on the Friday before. So
No. I may have to have a couple of pints and maybe a shot or two on top of that game, and I will live up to my user handle there. So let's see. That's just about the SEC this week. It was a good. It was a good week for games for the boys in the South, but we have to look further afield. We have to look at those less fortunate than to be blessed with being in a conference in the beautiful South. But I want to jump straight onto Ohio State, Oregon. I'm sorry. Oh my God, it was so wonderful to watch the Buckeyes lose to Oregon. I have no particular affinity for Oregon, okay? I'm not like some closet Oregon fan or anything like that. I do like to watch Ohio State lose, and that was almost as much fun as watching Oregon win. So, go Ducks. Ducks, yes, go Ducks. Well done, Ducks. Keep quacking.
Yeah. I don't particularly care for Oregon. I do like Cristobal, though.
Yeah.
And Thibodeau still could have come here. Man, can you imagine? I know he's hurt.
Yeah. So that's the other thing to realize is that Oregon was out a couple of starters yesterday.
Yeah, they were down their best two guys. I want to say this though. I have a few stats because I thought this was so interesting about Ohio State. So because I'm using the term Saban era because we're Bama's. So so since 2007, there have been. Sorry. So there have been 134 games since Saban came to Alabama where Ohio State scored 20 points or more. There are now 131-3 in those games, including yesterday. Other two that are losses were Michigan in 2011, which is I believe the last time that they beat Ohio State actually. So there's and then also the 2013 Orange Bowl. And the Buckeyes only had a single tackle for loss, and I noticed just how much the very stone runs to the near side boundary were. They had 7.1 yards per carry against the Buckeyes, and they just seemed afraid to be beaten by the pass. So what you do, you go outside, you go to the run. You just have these little crack toss plays, and it works. And by the way, Combs. Why the heck does Jeff Combs get paid, I believe, $1,100,000 to play base cover 3, base cover 1, 60% of the time for, I hate to say it, but they are a blue blood, for a blue blood country program. Like, what the heck? Their defensive schemes are unbelievably simple. That's why we won last year. Not that it wasn't an amazing team, but if you know what's coming like that and it's so simple to beat, then you're going to beat it. This just exposed everything I think that is wrong with how Ohio State plays the game. They act like they're the Broadway actors and nothing can knock them down, nothing can do anything to them, and they're always going to win out on talent. Well, what happens when England's West End actors theater troupe comes in? They're pretty good too. So when talent is similar, because talent I always think is misunderstood, but really I think the key driver of success in college football. But when teams are of similar skill, and we see this all the time in the playoff, you're going to see that schemes start to matter more. It's why it matters in the NFL. It's why it matters in football playoffs and bowl games. Because similar skill, well, it kind of cancels each other out just by definition. And when you have similar skill like that, you're going to have basic schemes be exposed more often and more often. And what do we see? Just the same thing. It was ramming the medicine down the child's throat to make them well. I don't think Ohio State are ever be well. But my point stands. They're just too complacent about what they run. They just think they can show everybody up, and quite frankly, no, you can't. That's why Alabama runs complex schemes, because not only does it work, you talk about a buzz, you talk about Liz Rip 3, those are variants of cover 3 that really depend on free safety pre-calls at the line of snap. I don't really want to talk about that too much, but my point stands that if you're running something that complex versus a base defense where literally you could go into Madden and select the play, that's not good. That's really not good for 7 figures a year. That's no way to win close games. That's no way to really win any kind of championships. And God knows I don't like Ohio State. But as a football fan, that's just frustrating to watch. It was hilarious, but it's like that team is in trouble.
Yeah, they had similar stats yesterday. They had 1 tackle for loss and 0 sacks. So, and Oregon seemed to just be able to do whatever they wanted at will. They were very balanced on offense. Their passing and rushing yards were within 30 yards of each other total. 269 rushing to 236 receiving. So, and they were running. Oregon was running, and they were consistently getting 3, 4, 5 yards, and every once in a while they'd break off with a 70-yard touchdown, and then a 10, 12-yard pass over the middle. Ohio State had no answer. They didn't adjust. Like you said, they ran the same 2 or 3 base defense looks the whole game, and they got beat.
Well, I'm going to be a little, a little too on the nose. Maybe this is a little too on the nose, and I'll wear that badge with pride. Ohio State's is in a cupcake division, guys. They don't have to build anything against anybody. Oregon came in and shocked their socks off because they weren't paying attention. Because of all of the weaknesses Jess talked about, all of the weaknesses KB talked about. But I mean, look at who they're playing. Rutgers, Maryland, IU, Purdue, quite frankly, soul-sick Michigan. This is not this is not a conference that is exactly full of ironclad powerhouses, and it's like anything else in life. This coach of theirs, he didn't study up. He thought all the quizzes and tests were going to be super easy, and now he's stumbling over one, and he's looking at his GPA has gone from a perfect A down to a D. So, suddenly Tulsa, Akron, Rutgers, Maryland, IU, and so on are actually potential threats. And did you prepare for them, Mr. Ohio State coach? Well, the truth will show out. One game that kind of surprised me, and I was a little heartbroken over how it came out. The Domers held on by their fingernails against Toledo. Holy Toledo.
Yeah, I was hoping that was going to be the call on the win. So there should have been a win for Toledo. So here's why this was unfortunate, let alone the UN entire conference of flags that happened on Notre Dame's last drive. So there was a score with 22 seconds to go by Toledo, right? So in that case, you need to be instructing your quarterback, because it was a quarterback or your running back, doesn't matter, the ball carrier, to go down at the 1 and take a 20-yard game-winning field goal. They allowed way too much time left on the clock when you could have just done that. There was no reason for it. Like, it was just so frustrating to see that on my end. Because if you do that, you have the first down and you force them to burn the timeouts. And I really think you would trust your kicker to make really a chip shot field goal over ultimately holding Notre Dame down for about a minute or so. Like, I don't remember the exact time, unfortunately, but it was very poorly coached. They had, I believe, penalties after that touchdown on 5 of their next 7 plays. And I'm like, the last time I've seen this much laundry on the field, it was a porn shoot. Like, what are we doing? And that was right at the halftime of the Alabama game. So I'm like, oh, shoot. Why is Notre Dame even going to be ranked? They're going to be moved up because, they had a gritty win. These guys almost lost to Florida State, who lost this week, by the way. And now they almost lost to Akron in South Bend. These guys shouldn't be anywhere ranked, let alone in the top 10. But no, it's got to be that Irish name right there. Ooh, that golden, that very good touchdown song. No, it's got to be Touchdown Jesus, all that good stuff. Kelly's a good guy, right? He never killed a kid. Come on.
Jesus. Damn.
Jeez.
Should have brought my sweater into the office with me. It got cold in here. But yeah, no, I have no respect for the Irish. Notre Dame, don't hashtag cancel me. Look, pick a conference. Stop going to, it's like we're over here eating meat and potatoes and everything else, and Notre Dame has been eating cupcakes for decades.
Well, bad news about that one, though. So Notre Dame actually has a clause in their contract and actually relates to their basketball team. If they were to join a conference through, I believe, 2024, they would have to join the ACC. I'm not sure that would solve that issue.
Yeah, it's just it seems a little unbalanced when you can go in and say, "Oh, let's see, we want to play." Okay, so we want to play MTSU, UAB, Toledo. Oh, let's put a challenging team on there, CCU. And it's like we're over here playing real grown-up, college level grown-up football. And you guys are out there having birthday cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every season. And yet you're still getting ranked because something, Rudy something.
Yeah, Rudy was offsides, by the way.
Yeah, Rudy was offsides.
Most definitely.
So they have an interesting teeth to the schedule, right? They have Purdue. I'm not reading too much into that. But after that, they're at Camp Randall. They're playing Cincinnati at home. Vatek on the road, which I think is a really interesting trap game. And then they have the Jewel-Shillelagh game. And I'm not buying UNC, by the way, but they have an interesting middle teeth of their schedule this year, which they usually don't have admittedly.
USC is not going to be ranked by then, I don't think.
Now, Todd Helton should be fired by then. So, not Todd Helton, Clay Helton, sorry.
Hey, maybe Ed Ogeron can go coach USC then. But he won't have a job.
And he's going to be so welcome in the state of California, too.
Do you think Notre Dame will be favored over Cincinnati?
No, I don't.
And they shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think Cincy is a legit team. And I'm not saying that just because a buddy of mine is a huge Cincy fan, and I promise to say nice things about Cincy. No, I feel like Cincy is are they P5 good? No, but I think they could get there. I think they could be a legit player in the national conversation, and I wouldn't hate to see it. I like seeing stuff kept shaken up, which is why I think Notre Dame needs to slide backwards a little bit. Maybe see how the front 4 rows look from, say, the 9th seed, but that's not going to happen. That we all know Notre Dame's going nowhere. They have got a death grip on their number 8 slot, and they're not going to let it go. So
I have to make an admission. There is one Notre Dame player I am going to root for, and we may all want to consider taking rooting interest in this guy. Because he's an Alabama legacy. Howard Cross III. He's a defensive lineman for Notre Dame. His father, Howard Cross II, was a tight end at Alabama back in the late '80s, and he played. Then he went and had a nice career for the New York Giants.
little
I believe he
little
has
bit.
most touchdowns in a season for an Alabama tight end in '89, if my memory serves. So
Say that again.
I believe Cross, his father, has the most receiving touchdowns in a season for an Alabama tight end in 1989.
I don't remember that. I will say that I played football against him in high school. Actually, I played Little League baseball against that guy. I've known him most of my life, although I doubt he knows my name because I was the scrub guy for the most part.
I mean, I like a few of their players. Admittedly, like Hamilton's an outstanding safety. Michael Mayer's a pretty great tight end. So first, I like their uniforms. I like their touchdown song. I hate their history. So
No. Hey, number of players killed by the University of Alabama 0, Notre Dame 1. So I'm just going to leave it there.
yeah, no rebirths. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you just rolled the stone, not the football.
Here was something I was surprised, and I'm not picking on you, Jess, but I got to bring this up. We were talking earlier, and I don't remember exactly what I said. So if I completely misread you and I've got the context on this wrong, go ahead and bust my chops. But Jess said something about having never seen, personally seen an Alabama quarterback. Was it go to the pro, like a pro Alabama quarterback? And I was
Alabama versus Alabama quarterback. Yeah,
yeah, okay, all right. That was a context. No, I have not seen that either. But I was digging through my notes. I was like, oh come on, Jeff Rutledge played football, played pro ball for 12 years. Surely he must. Nope, never happened. So this is truly going to be a clash of titans today. And honestly, I gotta kind of go with the Pats on this one.
So
I'm not.
When does the game start? I have no clue about NFL.
3. Yeah. Let me see.
I think 4:15 Eastern, 3:15.
Yeah, this is
4:30, 3:30.
Very cool. And I know the local CBS in Birmingham is carrying it.
Yeah, I noticed that they changed that, so they got a little bit of sneak in so you could walk it if you're in the Yellowhammer. It's kind of great. So I read earlier this week, because that's why I remember I said this, because there was a stat that came out earlier this week that Alabama versus Alabama for starting quarterbacks in the NFL hasn't happened since, I think they said 1982. I'm trying to find out who that was precisely. I'm not going to snake it someone else, though.
If it was 82, then it might have been Jeff Rutledge.
Let's see, Rutledge. Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to find this. I'm curious about it too because I thought it was a really cool stat, and that's why I said that.
Because Rutledge had such a great career, man. Not so much as a coach, but as a player. Although I think he did dirty as a coach. He took the Cards to the Super Bowl, and then he and his whole coaching squad got fired.
There is it was Stabler. Yeah, I'm right. Yep, it was Stabler, and it was 1983 with the Jets with Richard Todd, who, by the way, until a few years ago had the highest passing. He had a weird passer rating record, but Richard Todd over the New Orleans Saints with Kenny Stabler, 31-28.
Huh. That is fascinating. But yeah, I do not give a fig about the NFL. If audience, if you guys or co-hosts, if you guys basically ever want to just hear me melt down a mic, get me started on the NFL. I do not like them, Sam. I am, but the kids, the young men who leave college, and I don't care what college. I don't care if it's Alabama all the way down to UCF. You know, guys playing for Gonzaga or Incarnate Word. I don't care. If they go and they can pry loose a few 100,000 or a few million from the NFL, good. It's just not something I typically partake in anymore.
Yeah, good on them. I'm a much more of a, well, let's watch the Derrick Henry stiff arm highlights, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I have a den to clean today. I'm looking forward to that. more than watching the NFL. I will keep an eye on the ticker for Pats Dolphins, but my heart is wholly with college football. Despite NIL, despite the creation of power conferences, and I don't mean like Power Five. That's not. I mean like the super conferences era that we seem to be entering now. I still think it's a pure expression of the sport on, quite frankly, a professional level. Yeah, okay, there are teams that go in and get blown out like no NFL team ever could. And I firmly believe that the best tip-top number one, hand-picked, finely tuned college team can't hold a candle to even like the Browns in terms of play acumen. I still prefer college football head and shoulders above the NFL for reasons we don't have the time to go into today. But with all that said, I'm thinking Mac Jones and the Pats today. Big G, what do you got? Dolphins, Pats.
Well, Miami's got a great defense. Not sure about their offense yet. Tua's going to be good. I don't think he's got the best receivers. Their running game ought to be a little bit improved over last year. But I'm going to take the Pats just because I think Mac's got a better supporting cast all the way around.
All right. KB, what do you think?
I gotta go with the Joker, and I think mainly because I think New England has more Bama players on their team than Miami does. I mean, I can really care less who wins the game. I just want to see the guys play.
Right.
I want both of them to do well. So
you think their uniforms are really cute, right?
I think Hightower's back for the Pats, isn't he?
I'm sorry?
Isn't Hightower back for the Pats?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back.
So
Let's just have fun and nobody gets hurt, guys, okay?
I guess so both teams have fun.
yes, there you go. Yay, sports.
Yeah. Yay, sports ball. So, Jess, it's down to you.
Well, I actually live up here in New England, and I do a lot of work with scouting guys for the NFL and doing some guides like that on getting guys to the NFL. So I think Miami doesn't have really enough. They have a lot of questions in their secondary. New England, I think, even because they're missing Stephon Gilmore, oh God, bad Garcia memories from that. But anyway, so I think New England has a little bit more in terms of their defensive front and their secondary. I think you're going to see kind of a low-scoring game, but I would favor New England to win by 4, and that's because for gambling reasons. That's why I have it set as. So I think you're going to see Mac Jones struggle. Most rookies tend to, but I think you're going to see some flashes of brilliance that make both of them great. But rookies are going to struggle. I think New England has a very underrated front seven in terms of what they can do, but New England doesn't really have the weapons that really he had last year. But it'll be fun to see Waddle. It'll be nice to see Fowler. It'll be nice to see Hightower. All these guys, because I think each team has 3 Bama players. Let me verify that because I can find that in a matter of seconds.
All right.
but definitely give me New England on this. But I think it's close, and the fact that it's in Foxborough really kind of indicates that to me personally. So 2 seconds on this because they have Fowler, they have Tagovailoa, they have Waddle. So let's be real quick here. So yeah, New England has. All right, they have Damian Harris. Forgot about him. Damian Harris, Anthony Jennings, yeah, Mr. Batman himself, and of course Barmore, second round pick this year. Yeah. And then Miami has Raekwon Davis, who, yeah, I wish I had nicer things to say about Raekwon Davis. I liked him when he came here initially, but a little bit too much of that rat poison. And then Carl Tucker on the practice squad. I'm glad he stuck around because he saw 0 playing time last year at all.
Yeah,
Like, he was on second teams a bit, but good for him for sticking around.
I don't know.
I think it'll be close. I say 24-20 New England.
I'll go with that. I think it'll be a little bit higher scoring, maybe 28-31, but 28-31 New England. But I'm in general agreement with you. And by the way, guys, this is something that I don't know if our audience or if Bo you were earlier aware of this. This is something that just turned me on to. This is Our Lads. Do you guys out there in the audience, if you're not aware, I'm just going to go ahead and this is straight to the Alabama depth chart. I was this many years old today when I found out about Our Lads, which is a fantastic tool. I'll put that up. You can go straight to the depth chart for Alabama, and this is more X's and O's kind of stuff than I ever had easily on hand, and I love it. It's pretty spiffy.
They let you know players in the league for each college too. So if you want to track like who on what team has most Bama players, who has most LSU players, that kind of thing, it's really neat. Yeah.
And it is push of a button, and it's free. By the way, they're not a sponsor. But I just want to say they're not an affiliate. They're not a sponsor. It's just a neat damn website. So, if you ever kind of want to follow the bouncing ball when Jess gets rolling on the X's and O's stuff, this is just a great little tool, and I like it quite a bit. Gosh, I wonder if they're expecting something. 229 days, 7 hours, 22 minutes, and 46 seconds until the next until the 2022 NFL draft. They're not not that they're counting, but yeah. So check them out. So final thoughts, guys. Anything on the week? Any games you liked? Anything you hated? I had a fantastic seat for the game, and the concession was excellent on my couch. so I have no complaints. I think, man, poor G-Man had exactly the opposite experience.
Sick wife had to watch the kid. Well, that's okay. You know what? I had a nice conversation with my 4-year-old about how tough football is and how much fun it is besides being tough. And I got to explain to her how when I played football I would have bruises here and I hurt this and I hurt that. And she looked up and I had a little scratch on my face I didn't know about. She said, "Daddy, did you get that scratch playing football?"
Oh, that's adorable. Oh.
She's a sweet little girl, although I will say she is a little overly fond of poop jokes at this point. But I'll keep her nonetheless. I have a couple of a few final thoughts on the day.
Okay.
Let's see. So Brigham Young beat Utah in the Holy War yesterday. I sort of expected Utah to win that one relatively handily, but they didn't, and I don't think it was because they just got beat. I think they just sort of made too many mistakes. Washington, they are bad this year. They got blown out by Michigan.
Oof.
50 yards rushing and gave up 343 yards rushing.
Oh.
Between that
I
and the
was
Montana loss, which would you rather have as a fan? You have to have one of those losses. Ugh.
At this point, I'm jumping into the sound. If I'm watching, and I have
Yeah,
several
it's more
friends
like
from
pungent sound,
UW.
pungent sound, not pungent sound at that point. Yeah.
Yes, I have many work colleagues that are UW alumni, and they are
Hmm.
not happy. Finally, uh, Stanford beat USC. Stanford, who got blown out by K State last week, won handily against USC. I don't know what to make of this. I mean, usually don't think a lot of the Pac-12 anyway, but I wasn't expecting that outcome.
I think the difference is Tanner McKee, right? Because I mean, really, this guy was the top 50 prospect back in 2018. I think that's a little bit encouraging. I don't think what's going on with USC is at all encouraging. Like the fact that this happened, like really, McKee has not been all that great historically, but this is just another no showing from USC in a game that they should be able to roll over pretty easily. Stanford was not supposed to be, and I think still isn't supposed to be respectably good at all. And then, of course, you had Parker Lewis, the kicker, ejected for targeting, like pretty much immediately. You never see that. That like Parker Lewis can't lose. Like I'm like, oh, geez.
Oh, you're bringing back some old stuff.
Of course, yeah. Big one of the day has to be Iowa and the Iowa State. I thought that was a fun game to watch. I didn't get to watch it live because it conflicted with our game, but as I said offline, I did get a chance to watch it after the fact. So there were a lot of interesting facts for that game, in my opinion. So Iowa got 3 picks in consecutive games. They've only done that 2 other times under Kirk Ferentz. Once was in 2017 when they did Ohio State and Wisconsin, and then Michigan State and Indiana in 2002. And the difference to me, I think, was what happened with Brees Hall, both in the macro, only got 87 rushing yards, but also the micro. One play. So Justin Jacobs, to go to the 14-10 score in the third. Justin Jacobs is an outside linebacker. So he's covering Chase Allen, their tight end. Not only does Allen get smoked, but Hall gets the ball stripped from him at the 6-yard line for 6. It was like he was a robber who was trying to run out of the building after the alarm went off in the building. Like, it was kind of fun to watch, but I think it absolutely defined the play about why I was able to win. And also defensively, there's a lot of 4-3. So 4 down linemen, 3. Yeah, you know what. So the Cyclones play a lot of tight end play. So basically, that was to cover for bigger. That was to cover more bodies on against bigger bodies. And here's a fact I found out about Iowa. I was doing research during this. Did you know since 2017 that Iowa has the most interceptions in the nation? And then last year they had the best yards per play against the fewest, and the best stop rate last year. It's absolutely insane to me that Iowa is, I think, having an underrated defense for a team that, historically put out Noah Fant, T.J. Hawkinson. They put out some big. They're doing some stuff that's very revolutionary in terms of how they adjust to their opponents defensively. And I think it's kind of fun to watch that. I mean, really, this is not. This was just the first meeting when the teams were both ranked in history. Kirk Ferentz was 5-0 now against Matt Campbell. They've won their turnover battle 9-0 in the past 5 meetings. I mean, Brock Purdy basically had to be benched in the fourth quarter. That says a lot. It's not a controversy. It's just because, But what about Iowa's a Big Ten candidate, right? What about that? Do we think that's possible? I think Iowa could easily get to number 7. Iowa State, though. Iowa State was someone I thought was a very dark horse to get in the CFP, but I don't know about that. That was a convincing loss. They didn't look great against Northern Iowa. Things can change. It's 2 games. It's early, but that was not encouraging. But what do we think about Iowa possibly winning the Big Ten? Again, it's 2 games, but they look every bit the part in terms of numbers and your eye test, but also the film test and the scheme test.
I 100% honest, I had not paid enough attention to them. I will now. Apparently, I didn't do my homework. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch two ranked teams right behind each other who were not only in the same conference, but rivals, in-state rivals. That is like the definition of fun football to me. Because it's like, it's early enough in the season that a loss for either team does not mean a great deal. But at the same time, I mean, you've got state rivals, and they're both ranked.
That's never happened to Iowa before. It's beautiful.
They're playing each other. That is the glory of this sport of college football. You know, it's not just a bunch of guys with 3 alimonies, a couple of blown knees, an addiction to OxyContin, and a beat up Jaguar sedan that is about to get repossessed, going out there and playing football for a bunch of callow drunkards. That is the essence of college football, if you ask me. In-state rivals, ranked one behind the other, just going out and playing and playing their hearts out for students and fans in a state that, quite frankly, doesn't have a lot of sports, doesn't have anything going on the professional level. I love it. How about you, Bo? You're sitting over there quiet. I don't know if you're sticking pins in your Hangover 1, 2, 3 voodoo doll or what.
Yeah, get off your horse doll.
Okay. So, someone has talked about the fact that Air Force beat Navy yesterday, and I'm highly upset at you guys. So, one more game, and Air Force once again wins the Commander's Trophy. So, it was great to see Ohio State go down, and in the manner that they did, I enjoyed that game immensely. Predictions for next week? Are we doing those, Hangover? We're doing Florida predictions?
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's do predictions for next week.
All right. I'm going to say that the coach is still picking ass out of his teeth from where he chewed it after the game, and that's gonna the guys are going to take that to heart. I think they're going to come out prepared, and we're going to see a much cleaner game with less mistakes, and good guys win. I'm horrible on scores, but I'm going to say like 38-24, something like that.
All right, Big G, what do you got? What do you got for Florida, Alabama next week?
I agree that Alabama's going to come out a lot cleaner. They're going to play a better game. They're going to be much more prepared, and they're going to unveil a couple of wrinkles that Florida hasn't seen. And I think Alabama's defense will keep them under 20. I think this is going to be something like a 35-17.
Well, I'm doubly optimistic about this game for 2 reasons. One, Rickerson seems like he's hurt. That's a much tougher matchup for Alabama. And Mullen's still sticking with Emory Jones, either be it by necessity or by choice. It might be a mix of the two. That sounds like a winning combination. Oh, yeah. And Saban is going to light a fire under these guys that's going to make Mrs. O'Leary's cow blush. It's great. I really think this could be a very high-scoring game to try to send a message to the team that they need to get the reps as a little bit of a punishment, so to speak. So I really think it could be like I think it could be like a 49-21 final, because not to say that Florida's that great, but they'll get some touchdowns on to prevent play towards the end of the game. Give me that.
I'm in agreement. I think Alabama wins. I think Saban's going to take them to the woodshed starting tomorrow morning. I think there's some guys who had better be in the practice center or out on the field before coach even gets there. They damn well better be. And they know it, and they will. And I think that's going to make all the difference. I'm going to say it's going to be a little closer and a little more dissatisfying to Nick. I'm going to call it 35-17. Not because I have any particular respect for Florida's defense. I just I don't know. I don't think we're gonna win. We're gonna win handily, but I don't think the jank is gonna be out enough for it to be a high-scoring barn burner of a game. So I'm gonna say 35-17. But I would love to have to eat those words. So, barring anything else, I think that just about does it for this week, guys. Great show. Thank you not only to our the folks who stopped by to listen to us live, Isaac, Kevin, but for anyone who listens on down in the future. I just wanted to get that last bit of trivia up on the ticker. Auburn does, in fact, smell like a Turnpike Rest Stop Plaza food court. And if you've driven up long turnpikes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we will see you all next Sunday in the aftermath of the Elephant Whomping the Gators. Until then, have an absolutely great day. Try and catch Miami, New England if you can, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And that's all I've got. Thank you to Jess, to Gurley, and to Kay Blair. And you guys have an absolutely fantastic week coming up. Peace to you all.